this is GitHub API. With this layout, I could next to it put an object GitLab CLI, GitLab API, and could have the same functions wrap the GitLab CLI or the Bitbucket CLI API. So do you understand? This is kind of like in a way, what I do with this structure is to set myself already up that I potentially can serve other APIs with the same interface of this class. So you could basically see the function signatures, they are universal for any kind of coding API I would trigger in the future. Hello everyone, welcome back to another session for our professional Python course, Task2.
Yeah.
Today we are doing something we haven't done before, which is something which happens at work also quite often. Manu proposed a PR for me with his solution, and I was not too happy about it. So I took it and made my own solution based on that as my PR towards him. And if that happens at work, which happens from time to time, most definitely, especially with senior colleagues, always take the opportunity to go through with them through those solutions because, they can show you a few things here and there. It's basically what we want to do here and also discuss. Because, of course, it's a proposal from me, but the original PR is from Manu, so he has the say, what he likes and what he would like to choose and what he would like to take. That's basically the content we will have now. But first of all, what tea do you drink, Manu?
I'm on the Paimutan tea today. So, a white tea.
Paimutan?
Paimutan? Yeah, still learning it. Yeah, this one. Camera.
Yeah, this one is good. I was thinking about this one in the morning, actually.
Yeah.
But I went to some plain green tea, nothing special.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But the good thing is it's not a special green tea in any sense. It has no ridiculous flavors. But it's a Japanese. They never go really crazy in the taste anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But it kind of it's very a very strong wake up call, but without any surprises. So that's not so bad.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I love the sweetness of the Paimutan tea.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
For a white tea, it just has a lot of flavor still.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it really has from the flower. I think the flowers are inside. I need to check it up again. Yeah, it's really nice what flavor it has. I had my tea plant. When I harvested the flowers from it, it's such a ridiculously nice tea. And I never hear about a tea plant flower tea. Never saw it anywhere or something. But it's a beautiful taste. You really need to try it with your tea plant too.
Well, I will do that next spring, summer, yeah.
Mine was always in December.
What?
It was blooming in December.
Okay, wow. Out of sync.
I don't know what went wrong there. It got a hard shock though when we planted it outside.
Okay.
Ever since then, it was undecisive.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started. Basically, there are 2 pull requests at the moment in this repo for all of you outside. Feel free to check them out, even if they're closed later on. You can go on closed and you will see our proposals.
Yeah.
That you also get it. You can really interact with us here right away. Just don't spam us. It would not be very helpful. Okay. So this is the solution, like I said, from Manu. He had previously, but we will not look at it here in the website, as it is a bit when you go do a deep dive, you need the whole code base, and here you just see the div. For Manu's part, that's okay. For my part, that doesn't work too well because it's an entirely new structure. For such cases, I also want to mention I set up my VS Code, by the way, so I can also do reviews here. If you would have comments, they would pop up here. I have that sometimes when I need a more complete view. Okay, so here I will quickly go through your stuff, Manu.
Yeah, sure.
But I won't go in detail. One thing I really disliked was this function here. Because I told you you should get stuff from the user. So yeah, we basically have this helper function here, by the way, where you then always need to enter here the username.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying because if I want to automate it, what I need to do is I need to print this out and pipe it into this CLI command.
Yeah.
Just that you get a feeling for automatization. And then it works though.
Yeah.
But what would be nicer if I could do something like this here. It just comes naturally. And another thing which is also a bit odd here is if you have a CLI command like this, there is already a GitHub token in the background. And through this token, GitHub already knows who I am. So you could even leave out this one and you would know that I'm the user. So you could, for example, say, okay, this name here is actually optional. You can type it or not, but if you don't type it, then it simply takes me who I am.
Yeah.
So that was a bit something I really was not happy about. That you take input from standard in. Some CLIs do it. There's no general rule, but it's pretty rare. And if you do it, you need to be really certain that it's the right thing, because everything you take from standard in makes automatization later harder. If you have, for example, a cron job setting your using your CLI to set my status every time in the morning to drinking tea or something, just some fun automatization, you know. Then all of this is less fun. So that's one part of it. Another thing, of course, is I will mostly go through the user experience, by the way. Poetry run. Yeah, the next one is that there's no help message right away when I give no command. But that's I wrote that also down. Yeah, the commands, they sound really, really odd. Get details sounds very odd. Count stars is okay. I actually would go with it. Maybe a dash in between or something like it. Set status is a bit odd because it just sets the status to T. So set status is a bit also an odd name. It sounds like nothing, but this is the UX. So aligning it a bit would be helpful. Also very odd here is that here comes out actually the function description from the doc string. And in the other two, it's a nice text. But I not overlooked, but I ignored that a bit, I must say.
I don't know, is this automatically generated by the description of the function itself?
Yes, but you can override it if you want to.
Okay, yeah. I didn't pay attention to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. And I know I haven't been that serious. Like, this is basically nothing for me. This is pretty important to me. Okay. So if there's just a bit more text or something, okay, whatever. For a first shot in the beginning, you know, that's good anyway.
Yeah.
So these were the commands. A few things which I really... The next thing I disliked is a bit harsh, you know, I love you, but it kind of just means that I see potential.
Yeah.
Where is it? Yeah, it was not extracted out. Okay. Someone was different in my head. But yeah, it is. This user here you get back, it's an object which is actually not from you, but it's from the named user from GitHub library. And if you look in their source code, it's a bit something more complex. It's some API object which of course comes back, but it also inherits from something. And I say all of this because it's fairly easy to mock stuff in Python. But mocking stuff from other libraries is still always a bit, cautious. So you will see in a second what I mean.
You know,
the thing is,
I come up with I have come up with exactly that problem when I was writing the test function, because I wanted to mock it away for the get details, and then I would have to create a named user, and then there goes so much into, and you don't want to do default values for all that stuff which is in there. So I saw that as a problem, but I didn't know how to.
What you can do is you can mock away this function here actually, and return another mock, which is this one, and there you can fill up all the properties and functions here. That's okay. So you can basically return not a named user itself from this mock function, but you can actually return mocks are just some objects you can twist and bend. You can give it functions, but you can also give it attributes as much as you want. So you could basically not return a named user here, but something which behaves exactly like a named user here.
But this mock would have to have every method in here, right?
Exactly. So setting up the mock would be quite tedious, but I had that in my code too. You will see it in a second.
Okay.
But you would have to set all the functions here.
Yeah.
And I even encountered one case, by the way, mocking this is almost impossible, these two cases. So what comes back here is a paginated list. Yeah. Paginated means it always queries just, I think, 30 list members by default from GitHub Enterprise, from GitHub. And then it does another API call. That's a paginated list, because otherwise querying 12,000 entries in one API call is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it has one attribute, total count. I know the JSON payload response. It has a total count and then comes the content. But they wrapped it so in such an object so that either it comes back here, you can treat it like an iterator, but you can also get the total count. And mocking this away I found impossible, because here I need to iterate over something, so I would need to define my own paginated list stuff and whatsoever, which has these two properties. And it's just horrible.
Yeah, right.
But also, I found a few things here. These are 2 times the same API call. Never avoid that as much as you can. API calls are really expensive. It's a good behavior in such a sense to avoid that as much for the people who host the API. So this is one thing. It's not too bad that you have it here like I had, but what you will see in a second, you can extract that out a bit better. So exactly. This code was entirely fine. I didn't have to tweak it a lot.
You know, that was the part which I had the most problems with it, because the GraphQL syntax is so not obvious to me.
Do you know the GraphQL editor from GitHub?
No, actually I didn't, but I wanted to check that out, because that would be a lot easier, because then I would have an easier way to try out different stuff. But how I did come up with that was a merge between one GitHub repository where I found something in that, but typed in TypeScript, and then another thing was in the documentary, and it was a pain.
You see, here you basically can then work your way up, and it has autocomplete and all of it, so it's pretty good. In case you're ever interested in it. That's how I usually do GraphQL.
Okay, I think I will check that out a little bit more to understand it, because I think it's widely used, right? I saw that on Twitch streamers. They used GraphQL for a lot of things with APIs.
The problem is, I should have given a task where it's more obvious. Let's say you want to have some if you do 2 things, if you get a repository itself or if you get a list of repositories in GitHub, that's not the same, because of course if you get a list of repositories, it's such a long list that they basically just send you some metadata of it, not too much. So the thing is, then if you want some detailed attribute of each repository which you host from the API, you need to first get the list and then query each entry against the GitHub API itself.
All right, yeah.
So instead of currently we just query the repos itself, the repo list, and then we have the attributes which we need. But that basically means is if I have 30 repos, because I cloned a lot or I forked a lot or whatever, I need to make 31 API calls to get my attributes. And since it's rate limited to roughly a second, you can wait quite long for that. You understand? So that's, but what you can do with GraphQL, you can say, give me a list of all repos, including this attribute in one query.
Okay.
And this kind of is like, this gives you much more powerful access to the database directly, basically, in the rear. So this is basically just a mapper to the database, if you could think of it. And it's just way more flexible than the API itself.
Yeah,
how it's designed, the original API, I must say. Okay. So this was this part. And then finally this part here, it's fine as usual. Like I said, usually they just call it GitHub Token in every tool. If you set this environment variable, every tool will understand it. So I would just refer to it.
I didn't know that as default.
Yeah, you couldn't have known that actually, because I had to automate so much stuff. I got used to it.
Yeah, so some things you just have to learn. Yeah.
Also by reading the documentation and using the tooling more. I mean, I incorporated at work GitHub to some part in some projects, so I know a lot more than most people. Okay, yeah, so this is fine. And this is also a bit unusual, I told you, with getting, again, the API key here, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong here.
Yeah, I just copied that from the exercise 1.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
One big error, though, is if there's no .env file, you get a very cryptic error message. I want to emphasize it. If you ever want to improve this function, delete your .env file, have no token set, and then just run the program and it crashes like hell.
But I did fix that. I had that, but I thought I would fix that with 198 or 197. You see that there is if it is .env file is empty, so it does not find it, and then it creates it that's what the part 198 and 199 is. Well, what's that all about? It opens a file and closes it right after and creates a new .env file. And then...
It was odd because for me it really didn't work.
Okay. Yeah, I had a problem on stream on the video, and I fixed that, I think, with one or commit. But it could be that it still has some side effects I didn't saw. But yeah.
And
it's maybe not the best thing too. Yeah,
or maybe try to create it twice. I have no clue what was going on, but it was definitely crashing, and we can maybe reproduce that another time and check it out to make it more solid. But you're right, actually there is code to check this. I didn't debug it properly, so yeah, maybe another time. Okay, so this was roughly your solution. What I like is it's much more smaller than mine.
Yeah, the first impression when I looked at your solution, I thought, God damn it, how many files are there?
Took me only a few hours. The thing is, I started to just rejuggle functions, and I was like, oh man, then I push stuff out, which is half not mine, and I get very dissatisfied. And I thought, we had no video where I coded for a change, so I thought, why not give it a shot?
Yeah, it's definitely a great learning opportunity. Yeah.
Okay, so a few things. First of all, I registered the CLI here in the thingy, and now this name here is not unknown, so you can just run poetry run the name of the CLI, and it pops up. Okay. Yeah. And also after it's installed, it's just GitHub CLI.
How
not
about
the best name
conflicts? Okay. Yeah, is that?
There's no
issue?
GitHub CLI. The GitHub CLI itself is GH.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
So and Git of course is Git, so that should be fine. Yeah. So this is a little convenient wrapper. I also, in case one forgets it, have Task CLI. And if you want here, though, to give commands like stars, you need to add 2 dashes in task. It's a bit odd syntax, but okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it needs my token. I need to quickly set it. Good that I don't have it in my shell history. Stuff which you should never put into your shell history. Okay, here we go. So perfect. Now it runs. Yeah. I adapted the commands like I said to you. By default, it basically takes just always me for stars.
Yeah.
For user too. What I realized is actually I could have juggled these around. I could, because they basically operate on the user. So I could basically, because one is user details and one is user repo stars or something like it. So I think there's some flexibility to align the CLI a bit more. Status is a bit something on its own, I realized, because it does.
It's not a query.
Yeah. I just realized I think my doc string is on the wrong line of this function. Good to see I also screw up,
Yeah.
So status, I mean, it does what it says. I also added the command to clear the status. So it's reset basically, and then of course you can set it to T, and it's back to how it should be in the web browser. Let's refresh quickly. It should be. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So that's a bit the user behavior. Yeah, and here of course I can also type U in if I want to. Oops. Minus dash user.
Right, yeah.
You can also see here I added another thing, which is output. Here, format. So I simply have 2 formats, and I kind of let you or let people a bit run into this without knowing. But for example, what if previously you had one Boolean toggle for this,
right?
To just say output JSON, but what if I want then YAML all of a sudden too?
Yeah.
So this makes it a bit convenient, though JSON is usually you never go beyond JSON, to be honest.
Okay.
So that's fine. So pretty cool that this output, the JSON output, I liked from you. You did pretty well there. Would really not have changed a single bit about it.
Pretty minimalistic, right? But contains all the info you need. So
yeah, perfect. All good. I really, really liked it. Also the other JSON outputs.
Okay.
So then let's get back to the code. So I must say it got a bit late, so it's still not perfect, but I put some common shared stuff into a directory called common. I sometimes do that if it's pretty clear that it has some core libraries like API interaction and some shared stuff which are needed for both. And here's then basically the CLI itself. Sometimes I have more folders than just API, so this is a bit the structure I follow. Structures are discussable. I will definitely not go into it, but it just should be rather clean. And I must say my structure is not entirely clean yet too. So don't take that too serious. Always think also about this code base is small, so at least you cannot run into the wrong thing. What I did, Manu, was here is the API. And what I really like to do is, and this is extremely good practice, before you kind of in your function interacted with the GitHub API directly and basically printed stuff out or stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What I did was I created this class, which in the beginning takes the token
Yeah.
to set itself up. It basically just internally, it is the GitHub object from the other library. So it just wraps it. This is not obvious, by the way, for many people. And then I have these functions which return something. But look at what they return. This one returns a string. So it's no object from the GitHub API. This one returns repo star count. And if you look at this object, it's actually also an object I defined.
Mm-hmm.
It's not from the GitHub API. So you will see here when you go through that all of these objects here, which I return, are none from the API itself, no objects. You can return the API objects too here if you want to. I prefer not to in this case though, because it keeps kind of the interface really clean. And the reason is, this is GitHub API. With this layout, I could next to it put an object GitLab CLI, GitLab API, and could have the same functions wrap the GitLab CLI or the Bitbucket CLI API. So do you understand? This is kind of like in a way, what I do with this structure is to set myself already up that I potentially can serve other APIs with the same interface of this class. So you could basically see the function signatures, they are universal for any kind of coding API I would trigger in the future.
Okay.
This was out of scope, so I will most definitely not critic you for it, because I would say, okay, we also want to serve GitLab in the future, and I didn't do that, you know. So there's absolutely not even a tiny bit of fault in your solution. But I thought it's nice to see this, because when you do this naturally, you never get problems when you build a solution, a coding solution, because if your boss then suddenly comes and says, okay, Bitbucket is also in scopes all of a sudden, then you say like, okay, easy, you know?
Yeah. Isn't that also a design pattern, I think? More like
more or less.
interface or so. Yeah. But it's just you have the class, right? You don't have an interface where you specify the function and say every other class has to implement those functions.
I thought about it, actually. You could put it next to it to give it the signatures, but it's just meaningless if you just have one.
Right, yeah. Okay.
I had that. You can use the ABC module for it, which is exactly for that purpose, to just define abstract classes and functions. But it doesn't make any sense if you just have one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a bit the thing, why I did this and why I have these custom classes. And also
Can I just shortly comment on that? I think that's really, really good to have their own structure, because what came into my mind when I saw that is that's genius, because you have no side effects then when you mock that. So you can create your own classes and just mock them, and they just have the functionality you want to have them in your code. So it's easier to mock them instead of having to mock something which does not belong you or it comes from the API. So I really like this.
Yeah, and this is really, like I said, for that purpose so good, because you include an API or a library, and their own data structure. You don't want their data structure to define your data structures too much, because if they're intertwined and they have a major release and they change the API, you need to change your library a lot too. So you see, it's kind of like, and by this you keep kind of their data structures and libraries contained in one layer. One layer, one file here even, but in one abstraction layer usually is more than enough.
Right, yeah.
And then you define just from this layer the interface, and you're good.
Is this the single responsibility principle again? Where you have
I don't know. For me, it's common sense.
Yeah.
I'm never good in names, man. Like you're much better in that than me.
Well, I have to remember this to just follow a structure in my head, and you just have it by feeling. So this is experience versus learning. This case.
Yeah, it's like if you make a coding interview or something with me and and recruiters look for buzzwords, like they can search all day long and for those buzzwords, but for me it's mostly really like sit me in front of it and I show you what I really can do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have to come to that state still now in practice.
That's okay. The problem is I get kicked hard if I don't know the buzzwords usually. Really, no kidding. Okay, so one thing I also do here is basically I still, not everyone does that all the time, but I then just extract the data basically into this custom struct here, which I need from these API objects and all of that. And yeah.
So single return value instead of two.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So it's really nothing special. There are a few things I'm really not happy about. I log with typer everywhere here, which just feels a bit strange, I must say. I did no exception handling in this entire package, no exceptions thrown. The reason is simply I decided to forego it because otherwise in the higher commands I would have to catch them and print them out. And this would kind of give another bloating, exceptions never look good to the user. So since it's entirely a CLI and no package, I just decided to, I just print and exit. It's not really good practice. Usually you just bubble up the exceptions to the highest level. They're printed out, catch it, print it out, and live a happy life for the user. So this is not common practice, but I kind of violated the rule here because I knew what was going on. Okay. This makes testing a bit more annoying, though. You will see in a second.
Okay.
So yeah, this is basically the GitHub API. What I did to the token, you will be surprised, but I simply get it from the environment variable, and if it's not set, I just yell at the user, and that's it. This is a much easier version than yours. The reason why I did it like this is I'm more a simple man with finding .env and setting it, and I'm not sure if I have the access rights, and there could be an exception and whatever. So I always just keep it simple, like you want to trigger the API, give me the token, and if you don't have it, just specify it somehow, and I don't care. That maybe loading from the .env is still a very nice feature, but setting it, I think, I'm not in that boat, I must really say. But that's a bit of personal choice of user experience, and I totally understand that you do it.
Yeah, where do you draw the line? Because you have then the user experience you could improve by making life easier for him, and on the other side, you don't want to overcomplicate your own code. So it
depends on how good it works. I mean, I tried it now and it didn't work. And if that happens quite frequently, then you definitely should not have it like that. Or you could you can then take two routes. Either you fix it or you leave it away right away. And don't like I'm just too lazy here. I don't want to go through this long cycle just for loading a freaking environment variable. So for me, it's not, the user usually is not bothered by being yelled at to set the environment variables. He sets it and that's good. So that it sets the .env file and all of that, because also then it generates a file and maybe the user didn't want it and some other stuff. I don't know, It's always a bit delicate writing to disk without the user approving it and stuff like this. But it's the way you did it is totally fine. Like, I had no problem with it in my heart, to be honest. So it's a matter of taste here. I'm just a simple man. I like it simple.
Okay.
These custom structs, there is not a lot to say about it. It's basically, I use data classes. So basically these attributes are then you can just set them like I did in the code with attributes and all of that. It's totally fine in a constructor. I added some custom format outputting. Not perfectly happy that I put this custom code here, but so I can at least control them for every custom object when I format them according to these rules. I can do it here, So yeah, like I said, not perfectly happy about where I put this code. Maybe this could be done in a different place, but okay, for the moment, I went with it, and I did the same to the user details. So there, you see, there's still room for improvement for this stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It feels really creepy seeing this system.exit everywhere. It really makes me feel uncomfortable myself.
Yeah.
It's always, a day after you look at your code and that stuff. So
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
always testing the GitHub API function or class, rather said. It's a bit of a party, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you basically see here, for example, what did I test? The repo and stars function. I take this GitHub object and I mock it. So this here is basically the class. It's not the function itself, the class. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what I say is what the class returns is the object itself. And then I need to mock the object. Okay. So the object, because this function, actually, if you look at this, it calls get user first and then get repos, okay,
Mm-hmm.
on the user. So it's really funny how you do this. So you mock the instance of the GitHub API. It has a function then get user, and it returns this fake GitHub user.
Mm-hmm.
I could also swap this around, I just see, but this is how you can also do it. And then this GitHub user get repos function returns these two fake repos, which I set up basically here the way I told you before. So you have these mocks,
Mm-hmm.
and they just set the single attribute here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because I know that I just access here this attribute, okay? So I
Mhm.
basically just fake these API objects the way I told you before.
Yeah.
This stuff is really not fun, and it's pretty dirty. And the reason why I like the implementation I have with the GitHub API separated, like you said, is this has to be done once here in an isolated way, and afterwards I can forget about it in the rest of
Mhm.
unit testing.
Right.
Yeah. What happens is if you have multiple layers of abstraction and you just mock away always the lowest one, is your mocking setup gets really big, very
Mhm.
big. And
Mhm.
even worse is in the higher levels, you need to know what the lower levels do all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's super annoying. It's more stable sometimes because you test more the whole code base, but it's super annoying. And I'm definitely not on board for it when it becomes too big. And if you have API calls like this, it becomes too big quickly. Yeah, and then I just test a lot of stuff, like what was called with which arguments, that the class was instantiated with the right token, that the values which came out were correct, so forth. And here you basically see the second, this where I have to go through the pain like you did. You query here a lot of stuff in your original code from the user, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to set this all up.
Yeah.
So really, really, really not fun. But yeah, you do it once, it's okay. Yeah. That's also why I was a bit, when I saw all of these attributes which you extracted, I was a bit like, oh, he really wants to know it all, I guess.
Yeah.
Already was like, unit testing. This will be so not fun.
Yeah.
But you see some other stuff like the test status
Mhm.
and so forth. It's fairly straightforward, So works really well. Yeah, exactly. One nice thing I also had was for the set status actually. You didn't have it in because your token had the right scope, but I actually didn't have the right token scopes, and I got error messages back, and I added additionally this here, which kind of prints out the error messages because they give you a nice error message that your token scope was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's the best about it? It comes back with an HTTP status okay. So you
What?
get an error back, but it's okay.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
This
Seems
is
odd.
I must say this is unusual. Like usually you would get a different HTTP status if
Yeah.
if there's an error. Like it's most definitely not okay.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a bit a flaw design in their system too.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of different things. We could also think about do you know the HTTP status 416?
416.
That's
No.
I'm a teapot, actually.
What? Okay.
Yeah, wait. Yeah, they went a bit funny when they designed the HTTP status codes, and there's actually 418.
418.
Yeah. I'm a teapot. That basically means that I'm something different. It indicates that the server refuses to brew coffee because it's permanently a teapot. Yeah, it kind of means that you confused something, dude. You know?
Okay.
Like this is the wrong one. But I really like it. We should return it by default in our API.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be nice.
Like if you trigger the API of the coffee machine.
Yeah.
No, if you trigger the API of the tea brewing machine and it says
I'm a teapot.
I'm a teapot or something. Yeah. I don't know, something silly. It's a good one, huh?
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's some insider stuff when you go through the specs and sometimes you're like, what is this? What the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, this is international standard.
Yeah. Well, it's programming humor.
So, coming to the CLI.
Yeah.
I split it all up into different files to make life a bit easier. Not necessarily required, but I really like it. You see here no args as help. I set that to true too.
Yep.
Then you have the different commands. The setup was a bit of tweaking. I had to figure this out, that this thing here is automatically also the callback. You actually have not only to give this attribute, which I believed that this command is basically this the callback for this command, but also you need to do invoke without command. So strange.
Okay.
It took me a few minutes of reading the specs and the documentation. So fun. But then you see it's fairly easy. I get the token. Why is this important? Side effect, highest level. Again, good practice. Can be mocked away so easily. Perfect. Then comes this GitHub API class. Also easy. Just give the token in, and then I can call these two functions, and I'm done. Perfect.
Yeah. It's clean.
Yeah. Some formatting going on in between to adapt to the format given here. Like I said, there could be something else doing this. Not necessarily needs to be a member function of this instance, but it was one place where I put it. Could also be just a function feeding in this counter or something like it. Would be also entirely okay. Okay. Status, even shorter. You see it.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Yeah. And user is basically the same. And I also then always have this, you see up here, I basically have the user set with the default argument nothing. So you don't have to specify a user.
Yeah.
So if it's not set, it simply gets the current authenticated user. Perfect. And then it goes forward and sets stuff, you know. So really, really uncomplicated, these commands all of a sudden. Testing 2. More or less. What I basically do is I decided to go the good old mock everything away, which is one level below me. So I mocked away this one, I mocked away this one, I mocked away this one. So I kind of, where is it? Here. I kind of went in, and I still need to mock my API class itself. Even from within my library, I mocked away. So that's one lesson to be learned. I mocked away then the functions which get called. Here you see I can just return the object from my own library as I like. That's really nice. So I don't have to work with mocks also here anymore, but can really use this object I have from myself.
Yeah. That's a good thing, yeah.
This is something I really like, is you can invoke the command with arguments. You can set them here. I let it here a variable, so it's quite obvious that this is the arguments which are put in, even if it's empty. And afterwards you just check what's going on. I even checked the printing output here. that something was set. I never check it exactly. It's a bad practice to do. They say if the testing code resembles the implementation too much, then you did something wrong. So often when it's output, you either check it if a word is like it, if it starts with something, or if it was just called generally, you know.
Yeah.
You just need to make sure that it took that code path you wanted. Okay? You don't necessarily need to make sure that everything is in detail perfectly, because otherwise someone adapts the message a bit and the tests break, and you're like, just for this one word or this one typo fix, you know.
Right.
You need to find the spot then again. Yeah, and here, for example, and I checked the format JSON. And what you already see is the testing here is not complete. I could test much more. But I have high test coverage. So you already see here, high test coverage means nothing. For example, I did not test -- forward text. I did not test -- format wrong. Yeah. I did not test -- user, blah, blah, blah. So you see, you can have 100% test coverage and you can really not have tested anything. So that's a bit a lesson I want to also give here is, coverage does not tell you how good it's tested necessarily.
Right, yeah.
Can be really badly tested. So here with the status command, it's pretty easy. You just have T and clear. There are no flags to set or whatever. So this is basically already perfectly tested. There's nothing more you could test with this one.
Every route taken,
Yeah, every route taken. Here you already also see it's really much leaner. And here basically can really see if you called it the right way internally.
Yeah.
So that's pretty easy. Yeah. The user function was a bit more complicated. You see there's still some party mocking going on. But here I actually checked for different formats. I tried the different formats. By default that it takes text, and otherwise I wanted to check the cat path that it takes the JSON and stuff. But you see,
Gets
that's
big.
about it. Yeah, it gets big. And
pretty fast.
Printing the output, I kind of pulled it out because the JSON output goes to standard out. The text error, text, or basically everything else you could also put to standard error. So I created this function to help me in the CLI do that. Basically, where is it? Yeah, here you call it directly. It's a really bad example, but here. Because here sometimes it's one or another. And I need that in different. And if you have then here always this if branch, if format, blah, 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 print, if, else if, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's always the same code block, extract it, put it into a function. And then you really have this really nice, flat, beautiful structure here from where you can really see what's going on, you know. API, make API call, format, print. It's really...
it's clean and short.
It's clean and short, basically, and you don't need a single comment to understand what's going on in this function.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. The dirty stuff is, like I said, hidden here, basically, in this one. Yeah. So this is about it. This is my proposal for the most part. And of course, I think I did. The coverage is not complete, so I need to open my file browser quickly. Yeah, the coverage is not complete, Manu, but it's pretty high.
Yeah.
Where is the code from the manual? I cannot find it. Here it is. Here we go. So yeah, it's... Oh wow, when did that happen?
Well, yeah, I think that's high enough, right?
Yeah, but you see, the CLI is not well tested, so it's never... I don't like this metric. Some tools they have, or some people, they make checks in their CI pipeline that it needs to be above a certain number.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
And this is meaningless for me because you can have 30% coverage and you can have tested it really well. And you can, like you see, 98%, and you have left out a lot of use cases And there can be a lot of bugs in the pieces I didn't test. So yeah, be sure about it, that you be aware of that.
I mean, that you don't test the root class, I think that's fine, right? Because
I would never test this. This is basically data loading. I mean, if the package is importable, then this is working. The only thing is I never imported this into a file during the unit test. That's why it's red.
Yeah, and then you have star count.
Here I didn't test this one here.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, I could, but yeah. And here, this one is basically a path.
Yeah.
Never taken.
Yeah, didn't take.
Could be one of those if a user enters something wrong into the command line, for example. That would be one of the unit tests which would catch this. So you see it's well tested, but it's not well tested. Yeah. So, that's all about my solution. I mean, the thing is, this PR goes into your PR currently. You can feel free to also redirect it into main if you want to. However you like, if you want to merge it into first use and then into main or directly into main. If you choose to forgo with it, you can also, what you do with this PR, I leave to you. Like you can, where is it? You can just approve if you want or whatsoever. I cannot, this is just a proposal from me. You can feel free to take it and improve upon it. You can also take the structure and try to do it yourself, whatever you feel like. This is just a proposal from me. This is also how it would be at work. Like I make a proposal, but it's your repo. So in the end, it's your decision what to do with this PR in the end.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I for sure will take that. I mean, would be a little bit arrogant to say, no, my solution is a lot.
You can also say you want to do it yourself and try out to reproduce what I did in the PR, you know?
I mean, that could be a good exercise, but I think the target there would also be to land on your solution because, I'm missing the experience. Have it even better,
you're not missing it. I mean, it's not that big of a difference to your thing. The biggest difference is just separating out the CLI, the API stuff into.
Yeah, the structure. It's so much more extensible. So that's.
Yeah, but that's one difference in structure. You see, like for you, it seems like a huge difference. For me, it's basically like, okay, just extract out the API, and then you also already in Manu have the structure I have. This separating this into different commands and doing the unit testing and that stuff, that was just to show a bit of cleanliness. And I also wanted to give also our viewers an example of thorough unit testing with the patching and all of that stuff.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a perfect example for that.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to do a bit, why I went the whole route of going through the unit testing. Yeah.
I've maybe two short questions as I was going through the code, which struck me. You have in a lot of functions a command line which starts with pylon something disabled or so. What is this exactly?
It disables a pylon warning for a single line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know where it is. Wait, it is, I think here.
I saw it on a lot of occasions. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
the thing
disables...
is, format is a built-in function. So what I do is I overwrite, by defining this function, in this variable in this thing here, in this function, I overwrite the built-in function name. And it's bad practice to overwrite, for example, give a variable the name print.
Yes.
You understand the implications.
Will not be so nice.
So the linter basically warns you that you're about to do something really silly. And what I do is I ask for forgiveness here because I really want the CLI command to have the flag format. I could maybe go for output format too. I thought about that afterwards, but then I was like, I like it brief, so I just went with format and asked linter for forgiveness. What I should have done is I should have written above why I do it. Usually if you ask for an excuse, write why. Because your colleagues, like you said, now you ask me. and I could have written it just above, and you would have never asked. And if I will look into this in a while, then I will also know myself again.
Understood.
So, yeah, it's a golden rule is basically, if you work with people, ask for forgiveness, but always tell why.
Yeah. Okay. This is the first one, and the second one I had was with. Now I have to think about it. There was this. No, I have two more. The data class feature you had in one of this. I mean, this is a super basic question, and I should know this, but I didn't know. What's it? Why is it called this flag data class? What does that do to your code?
That's a pretty simple thing. Usually, if you have this class, let's say, and it just holds data, like these attributes. Okay, so forget this function down here. That's just additionally. But usually, you just want to put some attributes in it. And the thing is, now if you want to create this class, you also need to write down a constructor with all of these arguments.
Ah, okay, yeah, sure.
And no fun. So there is this data class basically, which takes care of this attribute, at least in the most simple sense. What it still has though is it has some additional possibilities what you can do with it. For example, here you see that you can, for example, make there's some stuff you can do with it. But what you can also do then, by the way, is something like this. Oh no, you cannot do it. But you can give default arguments. I forgot how it was. I thought it was like this.
Okay.
You can just specify like this, but I guess I screwed up.
Maybe
it needs to be the order. I would have to swap it around. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
It's, I guess, because of the data class feature. So this works.
Okay.
So you then also have optional arguments and that stuff. So it kind of takes away of bloated typing. Like I said, I have not defined a constructor here, but you see here I basically can use it like this.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
And then last one, typer. There's this typer argument, which lets you specify a default value for a property or an argument, and also a help text. Is that a thing you would do or recommend, or is it that it's too much, or is it like you didn't do it in the code, but is it?
Yeah, I just saw. I know which one you mean. Yeah, this one here, basically, right?
Right. Yeah. So you can just type out that argument, and then you have a default value, and then comma and the help text. So
it depends, but if you really build the CLI thoroughly, I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because it kind of, this one gives you the ability to tailor the argument better. For example, I could here have given the other variable not the name format, but output format, but it would still be in the command line format. So this is one option to tweak it. I didn't go that route in detail though, just because I was lazy in that moment. I was a bit tired.
Yeah, sure. No, I just asked because I just wanted to know if that's common practice to do that for CLI, or is that something which is maybe too
really
much?
Encourage also the people who see this. You see, in a PR, you can have always a limited scope.
Right.
You can never do it perfect. It's just beyond, because the reviewer will get too much code and will be screwed over. And also you will get too tired when trying to make this PR, and it will take too long. What you want to also have is, there's this trade-off between quality and quality and speed.
Yeah, right.
Okay, smaller stuff is faster, but it's less complete and less perfect. But bigger stuff, but also more thorough stuff, takes a lot longer. But then you will not really have to touch it anymore. And one of the biggest mistakes is, or the difficulties to figure out which one you need more at the moment. So if you need more speed, Because if I punch out a PR, it gets approved, and then I punch out directly afterwards a PR fixing what I wanted to fix. The code base evolves quite fast to a good state.
Yes.
So sometimes pushing out something more incomplete in smaller but faster steps is faster than if you push all your energy into perfect PRs and you move really slowly.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, that's a cool PR. I will take mostly all of it, I think, and try to maybe improve on that.
You can think about
learn.
where I screwed up. Maybe you can think about fixing. I don't know. The system.exe still creeps me out. It works, but I don't know. It makes me nervous.
Yeah.
You can think about ways to improve or something like whatever you feel like, or just
handling.
leave it be. And the next task is just around the corner. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I think that's a good thing, and also it demonstrated very well how if you code it with the possible extensions in the future in mind, then it's a lot better for future updates and stuff like that. Which I saw where my mistakes were, because I just focused on the current task and had not in mind that maybe another class could come around the corner, another API and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like I said, that's a bit
sure, I don't mock myself for it, but on the other side, it's a good reminder to just have that.
You and everyone else I saw so far on a good path, so I'm really entirely not worried. Like in a working setting, I would have been already happy with your solution, to be honest.
Okay.
Because we have a bit the battle at work, like I said, with velocity and quality, and there are different people who like different things more.
Yeah.
And I must really say I'm more a velocity guy. I really rather iterate on a lot of stuff, but then iterate faster because it works out pretty well.
Right.
There's this if you give, what's this test? They gave clay to people, and one person had the task to just make as many bowls as that person could, and one person should make one perfect bowl.
Yeah.
And the person who made as many bowls as it could in a certain amount of time made a better bowl in the end than the person who should do one perfect bowl. You understand that?
Yeah.
And that is why I'm a big velocity fan.
Yeah.
Why I love that we accept flaw, because through flaw you just learn and you can iterate faster. And by iterating is playing around, and playing is really learning. So it has a lot of magic. But I must really say, sometimes you really need to be thorough, though. I have a few colleagues, especially senior ones. Like if you give them a PR, they will tell you pretty much what they think about it.
Yeah, but that's also good. I mean, if you take that with an open mind and just learn.
Yeah, the good thing is if you have different people like that,
they will
who have these preferences. I would really call them preferences, because also my senior colleagues can go for velocity and I can go for quality if I want to. But that's really giving you also as a team flexibility. So that's also why I don't like to smash people, like just as an example, you.
Yeah, well, I got smashed in the left.
No, because you need diversity.
Yeah.
You really need diversity. You need people with different preferences and who do things just differently, and who also sometimes tell, no, I won't do it the way you like it, just to get a bit of diversity into the code base, because it's really healthy. And so you should really be cautious if you kind of, go against someone, like transform someone, I would call it maybe, So always, I like to leave the spark they have themselves, of course, like not really, in the end, you just end up with everyone is the same. That doesn't work out well if everyone has the same opinion.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So then, thank you very much for this long video. We can maybe link the PRs both in the code base in the video description.
Yeah.
And like it if you like it. Some views inside, you saw a bit more professional approach to the code, even though it's also not perfect. But you see perfection Perfect is the enemy of good.
It comes at a high cost.
Yeah, it's something you should never want to attain. It's kind of like something which is always in the distance, and it's good that it stays a bit in the distance.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, then.
All right. Yeah, thanks for watching and staying so long with us. Yeah, we hope you learned something. And if you like that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and meet us on Discord. And yeah, happy treat drinking, I guess, to you guys.